Welcome to the Head Shepherd podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO here at NextGen Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, thank you to our two fantastic sponsors for continuing to sponsor this podcast. MSD Animal Health is perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia and for their Allflex range across the world, with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Honega is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Honega team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to Head Shepherd. You're with Ferg. Great to have you listening along as always. This week on the show, we have Dr. Tim Gole from For Flock's Sake Consulting. They're an animal health and production consulting group out of Dubbo in central New South Wales. Tim has an unlikely story of getting into the sheep game from originally growing up in the city and then eventually falling in love with animals and ending up doing a bit of dairy vet and then finally into sheep production, as you'll hear that story. Gole is a passionate member of the sheep community, does a great job out there with his team, really keen on data and brings a lot of energy to everything he does. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this show. We talk through a range of things around, I guess, just getting set up and being proactive rather than reactive and sort of those processes, simple processes that he sees in sheep businesses that he works with and moves them forward to be more productive business. So we won't hang around any longer. No long intro today, straight into the show with Dr. Tim Gole. Welcome, Tim Gole, to Head Shepherd.
Ferg, thanks for having me. What an honour.
It's great to have you here, mates, and it's been a long time coming. I don't know, maybe we're unorganised, maybe we're busy. One way or the other, it's hard to find time where we're both in the same spot or same virtual spot.
Yeah, that's right. But it's also like an exciting time in the industry. There's a lot of stuff happening, and so onwards and upwards.
Exactly. Time to roll. We might start, as we do, with a bit of background. As what I can find out on your website and other places is that you spent sort of time on school holidays on sheep stations, and that sort of started ended up moving through that and becoming a vet. Talk us through that sort of background to doing vet, and then we'll move on to starting Flock's Sake, or For Flock's Sake, sorry.
Yeah, so son of a pediatric ophthalmologist, so dad's an eye doctor. So I think at this stage I'm the first ever goal into agriculture. Yeah, we grew up basically Adelaide, US, moved to Brisbane when we was 10, and then ended up at boarding school and, got to go out on properties at Western Queensland. Loved it, all the good stuff you do, shooting things, riding motorbikes. And then from there kind of finished school, didn't know what I wanted to do. Had a crack at doing a degree in social work. I wanted to work with people and help people. Had a crack at that, had a crack at engineering, got into ag, did that for a little while, and then probably just always thought about vet in the kind of background, but it wasn't ever the childhood dream, particularly not when you did crayon maths at high school. So I had to, do maths at uni. Got into vet, wanted to be a dairy cow vet, did all my prac work in southern Victoria. I'm going to wear gumboots the rest of my life, and then had to do, prac work in the sheep wheat belt. Did it at Canamble with who turned out to be my first boss. Had a fondue party. Actually, Jill Kelly was there, another podcast host. She was there that night. 20 drinks in, Scott Parry said, "Hey, we get along really well. Do you want a job?" And I was like, "Sure." So that was the end of my dairy career. I got a bit locuming later on, but from that, and then got a job there and just kind of loved it. Worked there for a couple of years, locumed around, went to the UK. So that was an awesome time, in the Lake District and North Scotland. Probably the only Aussie who's ever gone to the UK and got skinnier. Ended up getting into fell running, so I skipped the Heathrow injection, and then came back and managed the business for Scott, which for a year, while he had a year in the UK, which was probably such an exciting opportunity. At that stage, it was kind of crazy looking back. There was myself, I'd been a vet for about 5 years. Mandy had been a vet for 1 year, and Scusi had been a vet for 1 week. And so we were managing an area the size of Scotland. So that was a lot of fun and a lot of challenges. And then at that stage, I was like, oh, yeah, I want to, you play your best footy from the sideline. And I thought, this is, this running practice thing is pretty easy. Little did I know that it was just already organised, that I was just kind of holding the reins. So from there, myself and mate Trevor Smith bought a vet clinic in Warren, rebranded it Western Rivers Vets, and then built a vet clinic in Nyngan, which was an exciting achievement to build Nyngan's first vet clinic. And then while we're doing this, keeping the bank manager at bay, we're doing a bit of a fly-in, fly-out preg test model to Northern Australia, into the northern cattle industry, predominantly for Ian Braithwaite, so people in northern cattle industry will recognise that name. And then Trevor was up, he did most of it, to be fair, and then Trevor was up at Normanton, and someone at a servo asked him to preg test, a quote for a preg test, and Trevor said, sure, how many cows? And the guy said 20,000. So we decided to, have a joint venture with Ian Braithwaite and Cloncurry and called it North Australian Vets. And that was pretty the exciting bit, and that's when we really got into production work, and we do a lot of preg testing, a lot of fetal aging, a lot of body condition scoring, which is kind of like it kind of set up. So when I came back, I was running all the guys in the south. We had about 7 vets living in Warren, which is about a town of 2,000. So we did a fly in, fly out. It was a ton of fun until the drought turned up, and then wasn't not as nearly as fun. And that's probably when I looked around. Like in September 18, cattle work dropped by 90%, just straight off the cliff. Warren, Nyngan, not a big cattle breeding area, and everyone just destocked. And that's when we were looking around and going, how are we going to, we wanted to be production animal vets who did dogs and cats on the side, not the other way around. And so we got into sheep scanning. That was kind of how we kind of started to expand the production animal. And that's probably the road into the sheep game, really. And that's when, standard joke is, found my, sheep Jesus moment, because I was scanning all the sheep, and then, started running a lifetime ewe group, and then just realised, like, there's so much more in the sheep game to play around with, and then one by one led into that. Ended up in the drought. I read this book where they were talking about, these guys in the Korean War, and they were getting shelled by the Chinese, and when they fired the Allied artillery back, they all felt better. Their individual situation didn't change, but they felt better. I was like, what's my return fire? And so I did my memberships in sheep medicine. So that was my little bit of it, like a sheep MBA for vets. And then after that, it was a double-edged sword, because I just wanted to, every time I was looking at a sheepdog, I was really talking about sheep. And so got an opportunity to sell out of the vet practices and took it and ran with it. So that was probably the journey in.
Great journey, mate. And yeah, really interesting. Love a bit of your second-tier ruminant chat these days, which I'm sure cheers up Sophie, our podcast producer, who loves sheep more than oxygen.
Yeah, that's right. I've actually I've gone one up on that, which is like I doubled down on that joke now, and go like, from being predominantly cattle business, I now go like, why did God invent camp drafting? To keep cattle guys busy. Because when you think of like, I'm waiting for the hate mail on my inbox, but I think because like
a disclaimer on this.
Like a sheep game, sheep producers, particularly if you're, wool, like there's just so much more going on, and so many more management events, so many things that go wrong, which is the downside to, why sheep are better than cattle. Like we can get the net repro rate over 100%. We get a second product really easily. But the downside is all those little things gang up on you. Where cattle, it's a lot more robust, probably less opportunities to smash it out of the park. But maybe with growth rates you can. But so that's the caveat, Yeah,
awesome. So you are now, for flock's sake, obviously doesn't have a lot of herd in that chat. So all sheep, or is there a bit of cattle workers still? Or?
Yeah, it'd be at this stage we're about 95, 96% sheep. The cattle work, a little bit of goat work, but predominantly the cattle work is just preg testing, a little bit of bull testing. Biggest cattle client is my in-laws at Charters Towers. So, which is, I have to, front up once a year to North Queensland and step into some pretty big numbers. Which is fun.
And get paid bugger all, right?
I get paid, but I do get a spreadsheet at the end, and usually it says, because we fetal age, and because it's all about similar to sheep, right? It's trying to find the animals that give the needs to the needy. But I do get a spreadsheet, and Tim, if you're listening, he does put the numbers and then put steers preg tested by Tim. I don't know if I do or not, but he's certainly putting it in the spreadsheet. So classic bit of in-law banter. But anyway.
Great chat. Yeah. That's the standard sort of rookie check. Run a 3 weathers for the pet cars.
That's exactly right.
Your central philosophy in sheep, and I guess generally, is control the controllables, and that's something I've heard you say a bit. And I guess I think it's good for any business, but in a sheep business, maybe run us through what you think that means.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think I probably really got ingrained into me a little bit through my time running the vet clinics. Like certainly in Australia, and I'm assuming in New Zealand, like country vet practices rely very heavily on new graduates to come out. And I kind of got right into this kind of challenge with a lot of junior vets is like, how do we mitigate, like, as much as we can, the preventable mistakes? And so, everyone goes down, when they get to a phase of your life or in business where you got to go, I need to know more. I love reading books, and first book that made a big difference to me was The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. It's an awesome book. Anyone should read it. And basically I was trying to go, can I insulate mistakes made by inexperience, fatigue, distraction? And I think checklists helps that because, running a vet practice, like there's like a lot going on at very short notice. And that's probably part of like, how do we deal with complexity is trying to go on, like, can we do stuff to make sure we control it? And I think we can on some level. And that's, as I kind of went into the sheep game more, I kind of looked and said, wow, there's so much complexity that happens on a farm, particularly if you're a mixed farm. You've got stuff going on everywhere. So that's where I go, in that complex system, where can I make an impact? And that's, basically where I think about is what are the aspects that I can control that actually create some levers and then focus on that. And I think, got into 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the circle of influence. And that's, more or less the same concept. Is like there's parts that you get a really good control of, like in the sheep game, there would be rams going in. Like the enemy does get a vote, and some rams to take it upon themselves, particularly with maidens or, your stud ewes or whatever it is.
Ones.
This is like the sheep gods. But so like that, but that the day the rams, intentionally put the rams in is 100% in your control. And I think that sets up so much of your production system. And I kind of come back to those bits and go, out of those, what can we control? The probably other one that's really poignant right now is like, say, the pre-joining space. Like we do get to pick more or less the quality of players that take the field physically in a phenotypic sense. And I think with rams and ewes, I think there's an opportunity there to do it. We've gone through a couple of clients who've unfortunately got hit with brucella just recently. And although it sucks, I'm grateful we've been able to pick this up through pre-joining ram exams and picking it up at the scanning crate, because by that stage, you're smoked, your genetic gain's in trouble, your cash flow's in trouble, or you're playing for a draw at best. So that's where I kind of come back to all those kind of little things and go, let's focus on things that we can directly influence and kind of work our way out from there.
You've covered a few of them, but I guess, if we think through those key controllables that, I think you're right. It kind of feels like sometimes that people are surprised when the sheep start lambing, but it was pretty clearly 150 days before when they put the rams in that gave you a rough indication of when that was going to happen. And we know when that's going to happen every year unless we change stock policies. So, I guess when you're out there working with a client, what are the sort of processes you're trying to instill so that there is no surprises and they're working to those checklists and working to those plans?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is to have a plan, but also just have like a guardrail system. And the easiest guardrail systems in there would be, regular fecal egg counting. Like if I kind of go, well, I'm not going to get any unexpected hits from Barber's pole, like what would have to be true? Then it'd be, well, I'd have to be doing pretty regular fecal egg counting. And I think through, wetter periods, that might be every 3 weeks, we just put it in. And although that doesn't stop us getting a Barber's pole problem, it stops us kind of getting into this multiple thousand fecal egg count where we suddenly turn into death and destruction, which is kind of like spirals then, doesn't it? Because we get this hit, we get hidden production, we get these pastures that are just turned into minefields, and then the next round is hard again and hard again. And that's, so the guardrails, I think, and then on a nutrition sense, the body condition scoring, like I think from a commercial producer's point of view, it just allows you to have an altimeter, and it just means you're not going to get any, like, pre-joinings again, it's a great one, because if you body condition score your merino using their 2.2, well, you get some choices, there. Like you've got the altimeter, you either manage or you manage your expectations, and that's one less Facebook post that scared or whatever. Like it's, and I think and although there's so much complexity into, I think by putting some of those simple things in, you've trying to narrow the error box. You get it a little bit closer, and hopefully your outcomes get a little bit closer, and probably not too dissimilar to higher accuracy, breeding values. It's trying to get the outcomes to be as narrow as possible.
Yeah, no, well put, and I think that's really true. And I guess it's going to be a source of frustration for 2 decades for me, and it's probably another 2 decades coming of the amount of people that don't condition score their commercial sheep in any way, shape, or form, and the power that brings to that decision making. Yeah, I mean, we're all. Yeah, we don't. It kind of feels people get surprised that they've scanned a bit lower this year, but if they knew what the condition score was at joining, then it was obvious what they were going to scan this year. So it's certainly an ongoing challenge.
Yeah, and I think if I come back to, only because it's occurring right now for a few of our clients, if I come back to the Brusso story, because if you got a hammer, everything you got a nail, everything's a hammer. Whatever the analogy is, as a vet, I kind of think about that so often, and I think, of all the brucellosis train wrecks I've ever been involved with, from a scanning reproduction failure point of view, if we go, how many of those people did pre-joining ram exams? I couldn't guarantee it, but I'd almost say zero. And although pre-joining ram doesn't stop you getting brucella, because that's a biosecurity story, I think we can stop it at the scanning crate, like I said before. So it doesn't change your condition, but it allows you to mitigate, the real kicks.
Yeah, I guess having that checklist is that you started 8 weeks before joining, you did that condition score, and then you've got options, or you can start managing your expectations or managing options.
But a bit more runway.
The earlier you go, the more power you've got to do something about it. And it's not always economic to do anything about it, but you're right. You can then say, well, we're staring down a 110% year, so we have to manage our cash flow accordingly because we already know that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, that's right. And it gives you the power, the control, for sure.
You do plenty of rams, doing those ram checks, creating teasers, spend lots of times between the legs of a ram. But the one of the things that another frustration of mine is how people manage their ram teams, and you'd see some train wrecks there that sort of rams coming in at condition score 2.5 a week before they're meant to go and do something useful. How do we? What's best practice in terms of not having something you call a ram paddock, which is full of worms and flies and whatever?
Yeah. I think if we kind of you think about how much money you've spent on rams, and then what's the average ram price in Australia? $2-3 grand. Let's for argument's sake, and you've got 50 of those. You think you've got the same. It's how I think about it. You've got the same amount of money as I've got. I've got a Nissan Patrol sitting just there, and I think there's no way I'm running that thing all year without a service, without changing its tires, without taking care of it. That thing is my business. If that breaks down, I'm in trouble. But at the same rams, we've got all this capital tied up, and they make such an influence on our business, either cash flow or genetic gain. But we kind of treat them pretty mean. And I think if I come back to either the car analogy or, a sporting analogy, we just kind of don't let athletes take the field, for whatever sporting code you're into. It just doesn't happen at the elite level. Yet the rams, we do. So if I go, what would be a perfect ram management program? Well, it'd be at least twice a year, putting it in the calendar and going through and doing full physicals, making sure they're vaccinated, tidying up any feed issues, tidying up, any dramas, going through them again, the Brusso story. And then we kind of get an idea very quickly about how our ram team's performing. And something that's kind of been occurring in my mind, but Ferg, I'd be interested on if you've got any data on it, is some longevity of rams. I could get some really interesting comments, particularly more meat breeds, but about, these rams are lasting me 2 years, or they're only lasting me. And I think, wow, that's like a ton of money. And I really need to kind of get a better feel for in my client base of how that's progressing. But I think that's a ton of money, and I wonder whether is there ways we can influence that, like with every either extra lamb or extra year we get out of a ram, capital costs decrease per lamb. Yeah. And so I've been wondering like where the influence is. And I think if I go, well, if I was going to get the most out of a ram, what would have to be true? Then out of my car, I would have to have regular servicing, and a program and making sure that nutrition's right, worm control's right. And I think that's probably part of the story is taking care of those rams, or at least getting them in and having a look at them more regularly. Standard would be put it in the calendar pre-joining 10 weeks. If you put it in 10 weeks, I think reality will come in and you'll be doing it about 8 weeks. But as long as, as long as you can make sure that you're doing it a full semen cycle out, but also giving you enough chance that if you have a problem, you've got enough time to go to your steed stock producer and get rams that suit your breeding objective. Because that's the thing, that AWI graph, I love it. Those rams, they stay in the genetics stay in your flock, like the F1's probably almost out to 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah,
and then it's crazy long. And yet, if I was going to buy this car and said it's going to last me 10 years, I wouldn't just like check it over once or twice. I'd be like, oh, wow, I've got to really invest some time in selecting it and time in taking care of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, that longevity one is interesting and something that we haven't done a lot of work on. And I think bull longevity is equally important. There are a couple of things that people are spending a lot of money on, and yet if they're out in a year or two, it's kind of, you can do all the great job you like picking your rams, but if they're not still there in 3 or 4 years, and it's a lot of money to get down the tram. You're going to lose some, obviously. That's relative. As my grandfather used to tell me, you got live ones, you got dead ones. But I think we do have an opportunity to keep a lot more of them alive. Like losing them through just dumb stuff like pole strike and stuff that with whatever it is, $2 for a bit of click on its head or something, and that problem's gone away for the summer. I guess until we get more blow fly resistant to click, I suppose. But I guess there's things that we can, and I think getting them, simply that process of yarding them twice a year and doing something with them means that when you're not busy and you're not shearing and you're not doing a million other things and running them through, and means that you'll see some of those problems and hopefully put a plan in place. But
yeah, that's right. And then it just gives you, again, go back to that guardrail system. It's kind of going, you do that twice a year, you've got a much better feel for how things are going, and you get an extra year out of those rams. Suddenly, you can spend more, get better genetics. Like, I think gives you a lot more confidence. And I think it's kind of like cleaning up your room. Like you feel like you're in control once you've got a clean room. That doesn't happen that often to me, which is why I've got the, the set screen behind me so no one can see my office. But and I want to do post-match interviews as well. But but that's the idea. You feel more control when you've got it planned and you can be in that proactive space, not reactive, which is kind of so much of agriculture. Like there's so much going on,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the ways we can get proactive is with EID systems. So you're a big advocate for bringing data into decision making, and great to hear about your father-in-law's spreadsheet of how many steers you've tested. But that means he did have a spreadsheet, which is awesome. And I think that we've got big opportunities to bring data into ag, and you've also been doing a fair bit around that space.
Yeah, I think it's got heaps of opportunity. I think some of the challenges with EID, like it's a real conceptually simple tool. Like it's like get a number, get some results, and then away we go. I think tactically it's really hard. Bluetooth, everyone's probably got a twitch when you go Bluetooth. Like, you haven't lived unless, you've been in the yard and Bluetooth doesn't work. Auto drafters do weird things. Like tactically, it's quite hard to get really well. And also, it delivers and I stole this one from Mark Mortimer, you just get a different set of problems. Yeah. Like the data's not right, you got to trust the data, or animals aren't in lists. And also, I think with EID, I certainly came in the expectation it's a number, it'll be simple, it'll be 100% accurate or 100% foolproof, and it's not. And I think if you it's like that Winston Churchill saying, democracy is the worst form of government, except all the others. And I think it's a little bit like that. It's like, yeah, it's frustrating at times, but putting it in place certainly takes you to a better spot. If you change the dial on the compass, you end up at a better spot with it. And I think from an Australian point of view, even preg scanning alone, using that data, even if you don't even do anything with it, we've seen, like across the board, even relatively safe rainfall zones, people have to make big decisions on feeding or not feeding, who feeds, who stays. And I think even, with compulsory EID, I think the vast majority of sheep scanners will either have or should have EID. So you don't even need to buy a lot of tech. Your sheep scanner should have all that tech, and then they can just give you the file, and then it doesn't take hard to send a couple of CSV files over years to, someone like you guys, someone like us, and then suddenly we've got a bit of a hit list based on scanning or based on wet and drying or whatever the simple hit list is, and we can destock based on performance in periods of drought. And I think at a real simple level, I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, 100%. If we think about, I guess, resilient sheep systems, we've sort of talked it through pretty well, but is there anything that kind of you see that separates the good from the great out there in terms of producers, how you're setting up a business to be really, really good at what they do and sort of be really consistent with their production outcomes as a result?
Yeah, I think it's a crazy concept, being proactive and being organised. Like it's,
two blokes like us.
I was going to say, it's easy to say, harder to do. And, anyone who listens in my business will be going like, who's this guy? What is he talking about? But I think that's, the more we can stay proactive, the better systems go. And even if you get, like it's the 80-20 rule, like if you can get a little bit better, actually makes a bigger difference. And I think the producers that I see do really well, that's what they're doing. They're staying proactive, and like I love a good saying, and the enemy gets a vote. And I think so much, like you think your day in the sheep yards, like you think it's all about us going, you go from here to there and I'm going to do something to you. But the sheep actually get a vote on how your day goes. And we know that the day when the sheep, for whatever reason, just go, time out. We're not, and so the enemy does get a vote. So I think the producers who do it well set the scene up for the enemy to vote in your favour as much as you can. Enemy, maybe that's great language talking about our sheep who are, our talent, for the team. But I think those producers who can stack it up and have do things like the real simple things super well, which is kind of body condition scoring and fecal leg counting. Like if you could dominate those two things, which I don't think are like stratospherically challenging, like I think even those things will make a massive difference to a production system.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I see, and you would see plenty of, is variation in handling facilities. And the enemy does get a vote, but the enemy can be better controlled with the right gear. And yeah, I think just awesome to see, like the last few years where there's been a bit of investment potential around, so people have really upped their game on facilities, and that just changes your day a lot when running through good facilities. And doesn't have to be about spending heaps of money. It's about sort of just being smart with just making sure the key bits where the humans are going to be, and where there's a lot of flow of sheep, you need that to be as good as possible.
Yeah, I'd agree. I've seen probably more and more people invest in like handling facilities, and I think probably the thing I've been thinking about most, well, one, it makes everything easier. Second, it gives options. Certainly, when I look at clients who've invested heavily in infrastructure, it just facilitates an ability to kind of do things easily and do more things, and which I think gives you like, I'm just trying to think of, like, say, I'll go to cattle for a second, like, big set of yards, undercover, although maybe from a benchmarking point of view, that might be, viewed as an excessive level of capital investment, but gives an opportunity for people to do big trades. And then there's but you can't do that in a crappy set of cattle yards, AI or, any of those kind of things. Probably the exciting thing that I've seen people investing in handlers per se is that now it opens up a much broader range of people who can come and help you on farm. I've got one client who got a bulk handler, so his dad and his uncle, he calls the 7-year-old jackaroos. With the bulk handler, they're still in the game, and loving it. Conversely, I've got another client who got a VE machine, like top of the line. It's amazing, and suddenly he's at the other end of the spectrum, with almost high school girls, coming out, helping them after they play touch. And I think that's when I look at, your ability to get workforce, but ability to engage maybe the next generation. I just think if you make it easy, because that's the challenge with, the cattle guys go, yeah, sheep, so much hard work. And it is a lot of hard work. And going back to the controllables, I don't think investing in handlers is like, if you think of all the money you spend on sheep, like we'd probably cap out at $100,000, skillions, excluded, but, when in farming, $100,000 probably gets you the radio on a John Deere. But $100,000 of sheep gear is like every toy out there. Makes just life a million times easier. Things are faster, quicker. You got more options. So, I don't think anyone I've ever spoken to said, "Oh, this combi clamp was a dud idea. This Tapara was a dud idea." I don't think no one's ever gone back that I've ever talked to. So
I've never seen anyone take the roof off a set of sheep yards.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I really hate this shade idea.
That's right.
It's killing my tan.
Yeah, I think it's so true. Like it is. Yeah, it does look bad on the books, but for that particular investment year or whatever. But when you put it into your HR budget or into your OH&S budget, or all those things of just that flexibility. It's a great. I haven't really thought about it in that way, but the number of people you talk to about, have you thought about AI on your cattle or whatever? Oh, no, I can't do that. The yards aren't good enough, so the options that you don't have if you haven't got the facilities are serious, and that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I think about the HR thing a lot more, particularly when we had the vet clinic, we ended up with 20 staff, and we kind of thought a lot about vet turnover. And I think if I could keep a vet another 6 months through either giving them more skills, more opportunity, if I put a dollar value on that and the dollar value of having to train another vet, but a farm, to get someone to help you on farm who learns how you want to do things in your system, there's a lot of money that's tied up in that, and a lot of mistakes get tied up in that. And I think about $50,000, over 5 years, 10 years, if you pull it out 20 years, and if that's 2 less employees or 3 less employees, I actually think that has a big dollar value, or at least an emotional dollar, emotional currency value of not having to train someone every 12 months. If you blow that to 18 months, what a win.
Yeah. Yeah, and that good facilities, if you want people to do good things, which is fake leg counts, we don't need them in the yards to do that, but do condition score them every now and again. If you've got a great set of yards that people like being in, then it's no real issue when people with good setups are happy going those extra mile, just because it's not that hard to do that work. Whereas if you've got a crappy setup that is going to be a battle, you're going to have to fight every animal into that yard, and out of it, you're going to find every excuse not to get them in the yard.
Yeah, and then if you kind of think about, if you're going to recruit the best farm manager in Australia and New Zealand, what has to be true? If you're trying to compete for the talent with the guy down the road, and you've got everything out there, and even if you're not making more money out of it, you're certainly mitigating that HR risk. I don't know if we call it that, but yeah.
I feel like it's necessary to make a quick shout out to Gus Glover, one of our clients in South Australia. I was at his yards a couple of weeks ago, and unbelievable setup. And he doesn't have run heaps and heaps of sheep, but geez, it was a good setup to work in. So hats off to you, Gus. That was great. That was great fun.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And and also you get into that once you got good setups, you just get into that zone. That the sheep are flowing well. You're having a bit of a chat. Everyone's enjoying themselves, and you're kind of reaching that nirvana. And I've got this theory about people who work in sheep or cattle is that on some level we all have some kind of serotonin addiction. It's the cattle or sheep are over there, and I got them through here, and I did this, and without me and the team, you're dirty and dusty at the end of the day, and that's why the beer tastes so good, because you got that serotonin hit, and you're and I think, all those things make it easier to kind of get to the, so you can get the next hit if you're a serotonin junkie, which I think most people are in agriculture on some level.
Yeah. I reckon I spend most of my days starting at about half an hour after the job starts going, why do I work with rams?
Yeah, Rams is a big one. Like we bought a combi clamp and put it on a trailer, and just because in the early days of this business, we're doing ram exams in races, and I was just getting pounded, and I was like, I can't spend the rest of my life getting smashed like this. So even on a base level combi clamp, which is not it's easy, it doesn't require any infrastructure. That just controls it and makes it, even though, it does have its challenges. You still get beaten up a little bit, but it's much easier to go day in, day out. And
Just quickly back on the data thing, you've got an OptiWay that you send around a few people. It's been a really great option for animals not having to come into the yards and really just starting to see what's going on out there. And I think adding that little bit of data to the system is seems to be getting great reviews in the market.
Yeah, we've actually just about to kick off a OptiWay PDS where we're got 12 producers going to take it around and really trying to look at, how we value the decisions made by producers by having that walkover weighing data. I think it's super exciting. We bought one because I could see the utility, and a big part of our business is I just wanted to have like tactical experience. I read in one of those Nassim Taleb books about, chauffeur experience where the physicist is going around with the chauffeur and the end of, they're all bored. You would know this one, they're all bored. And then, the chauffeur goes, you're bored. I've been listening to your speak so many times I can do it. And then, they flip it around and the chauffeur gets up and delivers it, and then, and the whole joke is that, someone asked the question and he, the chauffeur's up there and he goes, oh, only in like Munich would they ask such a stupid question. My chauffeur in the front row will answer it, who's the physicist. And I love that because I kind of think about so much in the industry, you can easily get like a surface level understanding without a deeper level of understanding. And I just didn't want our business to be those guys. So, and also, he or she who dies with the most sheep toys wins. So we bought one and, to give it a bit of a crack. And we've got, some sheep of our own just to trial it. I think the exciting thing is, again, it's a fantastic guardrail system. It does create a whole, again, back to the Mark Mortimer, it's just a new set of problems. Certainly we've got clients with some and we've jumped at shadows. About what does this data mean? The algorithm sometimes does some interesting things, and it's like, boxing mobs, which is why we kind of wanted to get involved in a PDS, which is producer demonstration site, if you're not familiar with it. So it's an idea that we could spend more time on trying to understand where it works, where maybe it doesn't work, what's the opportunities with it, and away we go. Certainly when we've used it on our sheep, maybe didn't give us the answer, but put the flag up to go, oh, hold on, something doesn't make sense. And actually turns out we stuffed up something pretty big. But, if only we could find a good vet to give us some advice on that. It was like, hey, I actually, no, true story, I was going to send OptiWay an email going, wait, it's not working. I'm doing this, and these sheep should be smashing out of the park and they're not. There's an error. And of course, the error was in the mirror. But,
the mechanic's car, mate.
Yeah, classic. But that's the whole point is to go, okay, cool. I'm much grateful that we found that error early than like another month down the track when this is particularly for joining, some ewe lambs. And we all know that growth rate is so important to get them to that critical mating weight. And so, so again, another guardrail that can put in the system to help us get a bit closer to, the challenge.
You just forgot to turn the water on, mate, or something.
Yeah. No, it's just only you and me. No, we deployed BarberVax, and we had which is a great tool, a vaccine for Barber's Pole. I really wanted to kind of give it a run for its money, but we ended up running our sheep with a much bigger group of sheep that our host. Thanks, Marty. But we were just treating his sheep traditionally and our sheep with Barbavax, but because, I was Barbavaxing, we would never get worms. Well, I've got this awesome product, but we did get worms, just not Barber's pole worms, and so, and again, that's probably a great learning for us is going, hey, this product worked really well over here, but we've got to, we've got to put a guardrail in this and make sure that kind of the lead up with it, and you can't really do only a portion of the job. If you're going to use a tool like that, it's got to be all in our experience anyway. So
cool. Where do you reckon the industry is going? It's obviously pretty buoyant at the moment. That's price driven. Seasons have been improved. We can always take a better one. But I guess what do you think rolls out the next 10 years of sheep production?
Next 10 years, sheep production, I think data becomes more part of it. I think the value of genetics becomes more, maybe not in the same sense as chasing growth. I think more of those, those traits you talk about, like that save you time or save you money, I think they become more important as there's a labour squeeze. I think, I don't know about the carbon story. I've almost deliberately stayed, ignorant bliss out of that, but I think there's probably more opportunities, which is kind of like back to the same story, isn't it? Control the controllables, breed animals that will, be more efficient. I think it's an exciting space. I think, I think the shedding space will probably expand more in Australia. I think it's just full noise.
Two last questions we asked everyone on this podcast, Tim. The first one is, what is the last thing you changed your mind about?
Last thing I changed my mind about, this oscillates, but it's a pretty similar theme, happens almost, I don't know, every 6 months, is that, I thought I knew a lot about sheep, and then, and then something else happens and I go, crap, I don't know anything about sheep. I need to know more about sheep. We're lucky enough to work in the New England just recently with fine wool, and it's just like crazy. It's like, oh, wow, there's so much more to learn, so much more tactically. It's just back to going through those stages of, conscious, unconscious incompetence, the conscious incompetence, and then working your way through it. And just when I think I'm getting good at it, then I just get kind of humbled and like, wow, I need to know more about sheep.
And the second question is, who's the best human you've had the pleasure to learn from?
A great question. I probably, second to my dad, but I think from a professional point of view, my first boss, Scott Barry, still friends and mentor now. And I think in a professional setting, like having a really good first boss is so important. I think what Scott did particularly well was he was really good at making decisions. And his big thing pretty early in my career was going, you're suffering from paralysis from analysis. And I think that's something I've kind of really taken on board is, trying to make decisions and kind of keep moving on. He was, the king at being proactive in the production space. And probably lastly, just a funny guy. And I really enjoyed working with him. He did have a wicked sense of humour. After I came back from my first ever calving, been at vet school, of course I knew what I was doing. After being told by, Kylie Parry is also a saint, maybe to wait for Scott. I'm a vet now, I'm onto it. And went out 8 hours later, I came back, with adverse outcomes for all involved, heat stress, the lot. And then, Scott just gave me 4X gold and just said, welcome to first grade. And did give me, call me earlier. But I think that probably I really enjoyed that sense of humour. He also told me a lot of times to have a mugger-chin of Harden, what up. But I really enjoyed that hardworking attitude, but also, don't take yourself that seriously. So that would be probably one of my favourite people to work with. Still doing to work with him now, which is entertaining for all of us involved.
Excellent. I didn't realise that Harden the F up comes in Mugatunos, but that's good to know.
Yeah. If anyone wants to follow it up, I think Ronnie John's Chopper impersonations, look it up on YouTube. It is anyway, it's well worth edited. Right. I don't know if it makes it past corporate HR, that kind of language to each other, but it certainly did in my former workplace.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, mate. That's been a great chat. Great, doing great things out there in the industry. Really keeping that, shifting that reaction-based management to proactive-based management is an awesome thing to be doing in the industry, and great to have you in it. Great to share a few clients here and there, and hopefully, I imagine it'll be Lamex next time we manage to run each other and create chaos.
Yeah. Wow, wasn't that a hit out? Which everyone should get to. It was an absolute cracker. As for Lamex shout out. No, I think. We've always had the philosophy of the sheep game's a team sport, and I love working with other professionals in the game, and I think there's so much more opportunities, but also ways to help clients out with, and it's just such a great to work in a collaborative environment. So thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate. Great to have you. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks again to Heineken, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Thank you to MNSD Animal Health and Norflex Livestock Intelligence. They offer an extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. We thank both of these companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.